let's investigate a toggle that involves opacity. And this one's we're gonna explore several interesting things here. A toggle lets you switch between two things usually. However, it could let you switch between several things, and that's what we're gonna look at today. Let's go ahead and make sure we have a comment with a hashtag opacity toggle, because that's what we'll investigate today. And then let's make sure that we save this. Go to the 3 bars and then save as, and then opacity toggle, please. And then save, of course. Alrighty. So let's get in there and let's make things happen. First of all, we're going to start off with, we're going to make some shapes. I'm going to call the first one first. And I'm going to make it a regular polygon so that we are working with slightly different shapes than what I don't want to always work with circles. Regular polygon. Regular polygons are a lot like circles. You got to give them a center X and a center Y. So 50, 200. You have to then give them a radius. In this case, I'll give it 30. But where regular polygons deviate is that fourth parameter is going to be the number of points or corners. So I'm going to start off with a triangle by making it 3 points and then give it a fill of, I was going to give it a fill of, I was going to give you just a color, but I want to make sure that we're working on RGBs and gradients. So let's make it an RGB. And we're going to make it an RGB of red. And the way that we do that is we will, R stands for red, G stands for green, and B stands for blue. So if I say 255, 0, 0, that will be a red color because I'm giving it the maximum amount of red and I'm giving it 0 green and 0 blue. And just to test that theory, let's go ahead and hit run and see how it works. Looks good. Oh, whenever you get this prompt, don't click on the link. Just click on the blue part of it anywhere and it'll go away. If you click on the link, then all of a sudden you're full screen and you lose, menu items. So anyways, now we're going to make 4 shapes like this, and there's no reason to retype the code. That'll take too long. So I'm just going to move the cursor to the beginning of the line of code where it says first. I'm going to hold down the shift key with my left hand, and you should too. And then I'm going to hit the down arrow with my right hand, and that automatically selects that entire line. Now, Control C to copy. If you're on a MacBook, you'll do Command C. And then down arrow to deselect. And then Control V to paste. And if you're on a Mac, you'll hit Command V to paste. Now, I'm going to do that 2 more times. Control V, Control V. And so now I basically wanted to have 4 shapes, and mostly I'm doing the same thing. So I didn't want to have to retype everything. First of all, it takes too long. And second of all, I'm bound to make mistakes. So, lesson to be learned there. Okay, let's go ahead and change the second shape to the name of second. The third shape should be called third. And the fourth shape will be called fourth. Now, we need to space these out a bit. So instead of going at 50 for the second shape, we'll be at 150. The third shape will be at 250. And then the fourth shape will be at 350. Now, if we hit run, we can see, we got this stuff nice and spread out. Only bummer is they're all the same shape and they're all the same color. So let's go in and change the second shape to having 4 points, so it'll be a square. The next one will have 5 points, so it'll be a pentagon. And the fourth one will have 6 points, so it'll be hexagon. Let's go ahead and hit run. Looking better. And let's go and change the RGB so we get different colors. So on the square, instead of 25500, we're going to do 0, and then we'll make the green 255, so that should get us a green square, sure enough. And then we'll do a similar thing with the RGB for the third one. We'll go 0, 0, and we'll set the blue to 255, and then hit run, and that'll get us a blue pentagon. And then finally, that last one will make it so that it is black in color, and we'll do that by doing 255, 255, 255, and hit run. And oh, you know what? I just made it white by accident. Let's give it 0, 0, 0. And then we will get black. There we go. Cool. Okay. Now we've got 4 shapes and we can experiment around with some stuff. Oh, one other thing. Let's make the opacity of the 3 shapes to the right smaller. So we'll go comma opacity equals 30, and we'll do this for each of these guys. And by the way, save me a little time. I'm just going to highlight this with my keyboard. I'm holding the shift key and hitting left, and then control C, and then I go down and control V, and then go control V, and that'll make it so things move faster. Now let's run, and we can see that the 3 guys on the right are more they're more transparent, and the guy on the left is really solid. Okay, so now we're going to make a helper function, and we're going to call it toggle opacity, because we're going to toggle based on opacity. And then we'll begin to write the code. In the code, what we're going to do is we're going to check to see we're going to check to see what is the opacity of the first shape. We're going to start with that. If first dot opacity equal 100, then we will make it dim. We will make it from solid to more transparent. So we'll say if first dot opacity equals 100, let's change first dot opacity equal to something smaller like 30. Now, for the other shapes, what we're going to do, we'll go second. Actually, you know what? I can copy this line because I'm going to do this a few times. So I'm going to go ahead and hold the shift key down arrow, control C, and then I'm going to go control V, control V, control V. Now I don't have to type so much stuff over and over again. I'm going to make sure that the opacity for the second guy and the third guy and the fourth guy, I'm going to make sure those opacities all go to 100. Let's see, is that what I want to do? Yeah, they're going to all go to 100, I think. Let me think about this. Right now, hold on one sec. Sorry about that, guys. I lost track of my goal. What my goal is going to be is that when you click, the next shape gets solid, and the next shape, and the next shape. So what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that first dot opacity goes to 30, and second dot opacity goes to 100, and then the others we're going to leave at 30. And let's go ahead and well, actually, maybe I can show you this effect. Oh, by the way, I'm ending these lines with colons. I don't know why I did that. Let's get rid of those. Sorry about that. Don't know where that came from. And let's test this out. We're going to define an on mouse press function. And remember, we always have to give 2 parameters. Do you remember what they are? Hopefully you do. Mouse X, comma mouse Y. Do they have to be that? No, they don't. But that is very descriptive. And then we're going to go and run the helper function toggle opacity. And now let's go ahead and hit run. And we see we've got a nice solid triangle and then 3 transparent shapes. I'm going to click one time. 3, 2, 1. I'm clicking now. And you'll see that now the first shape went transparent and the second shape became very solid. That's what the code does. We're going to make it so that every time we click, the next one becomes solid and then the next one becomes solid. Now, since we already wrote most of the code here, I'm going to go ahead and copy this. I'm going to copy all of these lines of code. Again, I go to the top with my keyboard, hold the shift key, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, down arrow, and then control C to copy or command C if you're on a Mac, and then control V, control V, control V, and we're going to fix this stuff up. Now what I want to do is I want to make this into an elif, but you know, honestly, before I make it into an elif, I want to show you something. Let's leave it as ifs for now and we'll fix that up. So let's go, let's check to see what the second dot opacity is. If second dot opacity equals 100. In other words, if it's the solid one, then let's make it become the dim one. Is that correct? Yes, we'll not the dim one, but it will be one of the dim ones. Now, if the second opacity is 100 and I click, I want the third opacity to become 100. So we'll do that, and then we'll leave all the other ones set to 30. And all we did is change the second from 100 to 30. Okay. Now let's check on the third opacity. Let's see if it's 100, and if it is, let's make it into 30. Oh, we're already there. That's good. And we'll make the fourth opacity into 100. And let's make sure all the other ones are 30. Okay. So first is 30, second is 30, third is 30, fourth goes to 100. So again, if the third one's 100 and we click, then the fourth one will go to 100. Finally, if we click and the fourth opacity is 100, then we will set the first one to 100 and we'll change all the others back to 30. Okay, so that's kind of the plan. Let's see how this works. I'm curious. I'm going to go ahead and hit run. And when I do, I'm going to go click and let's see here. Oh, I misspelled fourth. Let's try fixing that. And then hit run and then click. I'm clicking again and again and again and nothing's happening. Why is nothing happening? Nothing is happening because I'm checking to see if first dot opacity is 100. And if it is, I'm changing it to 30. That doesn't seem to be happening, but let me tell you why. Or actually, maybe you want to take a minute, pause the video, see if you can figure out why? That'd be awesome. Okay, I'm going to assume that you paused the video, and we're back. I'm going to explain to you. See, what happens is, as soon as I get to this next if, I'm checking to see if second dot opacity is 100. Well, I just changed second opacity to 100. When I click, basically because this is an if, and this is an if, and this is an if, and this is an if, all of those ifs are going to be checked. And if I check opacity, the first opacity, and it's 100, and I change the second one to 100, immediately after that, this is going to be checked. And then we're going to change the second opacity back to 30 again. And then we're going to change the third opacity 100, and this is going to be checked. And so then we'll change the fourth opacity 100, and then we'll check that one, and then we'll go back to the way we started at the beginning. So the problem is since all of these guys are going to be checked, everything's going to go back to normal 1, 2, 3. Okay? So the way to fix that is we're going to make this into an elif, and we're going to make this into an elif, and we're going to make this into an elif. Now, what that does is it makes it so when I click one time, only one of these guys can be true. Okay? In other words, if the first opacity is 100, this will happen and I'll skip all the rest. If the second opacity is 100, this will happen and I'll skip all the rest. If the third opacity is 100, this one will be skipped, this one will be skipped, and then we'll do this, and then I'll skip the fourth one. That's the magic of elif instead of just doing if. Hopefully that is valuable to you. Anyways, let's run and see what happens. So I'm going to go ahead and hit run, and I'm going to go and click, 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 and it looks like it's working. And something that I want to point out that's really cool if you didn't notice it, is that by doing things this way, it looks like we formed a loop. Because what happens is when the first opacity, let's get to the first, when the first guy is, when it's totally opaque, when it's totally non-transparent, and I click, the next one becomes solid, and then the next one becomes solid, and then the next one becomes solid. By the time I get to that fourth one, my code checks to see if the fourth one is solid, And if it is, we go back and we set the first one to be solid again and set all others to be transparent. And in effect, it looks as though we have a loop. This is a really cool effect, and it can be used in a number of different ways. We could toggle based on all kinds of things. We could toggle based on whether or not something is visible. We could toggle based on whether something is a certain color or not. Let me think of what else could we toggle. Hold on one sec. Okay, several things we could toggle based on. We could toggle on a label if the value of the label was one thing. We could then use that to toggle on instead of opacity. Okay, the value of a label. We could also toggle based on position on screen. If something was here and we wanted it to move to here or here or here, we could do a toggle that way. Anyways, we'll see. I might do a couple more toggle explorations for you to look at, and then you can use these to get through exercises in CMU. Okay, anyways, that's it for today. Thank you for your patience. And hey, by the way, if you want to add your own value-added trick to this, please feel free. I would love to see that you changed it around and made it your own when you call me over to show me that you completed this.